You're listening to the P.A.C.E Radio Network here at PACERadio.net.
The views expressed by the individuals during this broadcast are their own opinions, and they may not be the same as those of their group or other organizations they may be involved with.
All medical advice during our broadcast is not a medical opinion and should be checked with your medical physician.
Oh yeah, baby, that's lovely.
Excuse me. Good morning and welcome to Psychedelics and Cannabis Educational News. We're live here at PACERadio.net and I have got the mic unmuted. Cindy is still out west, Spirit Medicine Conference going on out there, and Glenn isn't available. So, as you know, no one's around and not available, I go alone. But normally when I'm with somebody, you know how I always have to get up and leave and deal with the dogs or the cats at the door. Well, I can't change any of that, but if that happens during the broadcast, don't worry, I got it covered. Just watch a quick little video while I'm gone. So other than that, I will get started on the news. First story up of the day. It comes to us from Green Market Report. It says the DEA rescheduling hearing gets pushed back over witness list. That's right. A hearing, including the testimony of witnesses, won't happen until January or February of 2025. So what happened there? The much anticipated hearing for the rescheduling of cannabis was delayed after the Chief Administrative Law Judge, John Mulroney, issued a preliminary order on Thursday finding fault with the Drug Enforcement Agency's list of witnesses. First reported by Marijuana Moment, Mulroney noted that the DEA sent a poorly prepared list of witnesses approved to speak at the December 2nd hearing. The order said that the list of DEA provided only listed the people and organizations approved with one or two email addresses attached. It did not include addresses or phone numbers and didn't state whether the interested party would be adversely affected or aggrieved by the proposed regulating change. Now it says here in the order, as the record currently stands, although the agency has fixed a December 2nd, 2024 hearing date, there is no way to discern from the present record which DPs, which is designated participant, support or oppose the NPRM, which is the Notice of Proposal rulemaking. To effectively preside over this hearing, additional information must be furnished to the tribunal forthwith. Now, the hearing in December will take place. However, no testimony or evidence will be presented. According to the order, the next potential date for such testimony wouldn't be until January or February of 2025. The order included the list of approved witnesses from the DEAs and Milligan. They are Village Farms International, National Cannabis Association, the American Academy of Hospice and Palliative Care, Cannabis Bioscience International Holdings, Hemp for Victory. I know of that as a movie. State of Connecticut Cannabis Ombudsman Aaron Kirk, Massachusetts Cannabis Advisory Board member Alan Brown, Veterans Initiative 22, the Doc app, DBA My Florida Green. Now, the Commonwealth Project, St. Anne's College, National Drug and Alcohol Screening Association, Smart Approaches to Marijuana, International Academy on the Science and Impact of Cannabis Industry Victims Educating Litigants, Kenneth Finn, who's a doctor, National Transportation Safety Board member Jennifer Homedy, Philip Drum, State of Nebraska Attorney General Mike Hilgers, International Association of Chiefs of Police, Drug Enforcement Agency of Federal Narcotics Agents, American College of Occupational and Environmental Medicine, Natalie Hartenborn, Community Anti-Drug Coalitions of America, Tennessee Bureau of Investigations, National Sheriff's Association. Geez, I come to think of it, I didn't hear anything about NORML in the U.S., Marijuana Policy Project, any advocacy group that is on favor of cannabis. There's obviously the ones against, such as smart approaches of cannabis to marijuana. So I don't know why a group such as NORML wouldn't be invited to something like this. The participants were told that they need to provide additional information by November the 12th, including their names, addresses, phone numbers, and the general mission of their practice or business. It's been a possibility that this process could drag out longer than many either anticipated or would like. The administrative process is cumbersome, and as we have been seen historically, administrative challenges to cannabis Schedule 1 status takes years to resolve. Paul Armanetto, he's deputy director of NORML. He goes on to say that said, unlike in the past, it is our political opponents who are presented with the burden of arguing against the findings of both the HSS and the FDA, which have determined that cannabis does not meet the scientific criteria of either a Schedule 1 or Schedule 3 controlled substance. There you go. Yeah, so wonder why in that whole list of people, why there wasn't any that we're aware of, well-known cannabis advocacies, pro-cannabis advocacy groups. Obviously, you got the anti with the smart group that's there, because they never talk anything about positive about the cannabis end of things. So, alrighty, on to my next story. This one is about a family and a mother and daughter in the UK. Here we go. This one comes to us from the BBC. Mum spends 24,000 English pounds a year on daughter's cannabis oil. 24,000 pounds a year. Now, the mother of Ashcombe, Kent, who says she pays £2,000 a month for her daughter's medicinal cannabis supply, has called for greater access to the drug on the NHS. I think a pound is about $1.82 American. So you could almost double that, almost. Now, Emma Appleby said her daughter Tegan, 15, uses the drug to manage the daily seizures she suffers due to severe epilepsy. Medicinal cannabis became legal in the UK 6 years ago, but Ms. Appleby said it's still impossible to get it from health service. The NHS says it does prescribe some licensed cannabis-based products for certain conditions, but it said many products cannot be prescribed because the manufacturers have not engaged with UK medicine's regulatory process. You're passing the buck over. Ms. Appleby told the BBC that cannabis oil has changed her daughter's life, but she cannot get a prescription on the NHS. She says it's absolutely gutting that it has been 6 years and we are still in this position. Now she says she pays for the medicine through private health care, and added, I've had to work so hard to keep raising the money for the cannabis oil. Now in Brighton, 31-year-old Ryan Gillum has been living with Scatia, I'm not sure on that, and migraines for more than 10 years. He said he found traditional treatment methods negatively affected his mental health and discovered that medicinal cannabis significantly improved his condition without the side effects, but comes at a cost of £500 each month. He says, I would like it to be available in the NHS, or for them to pay for some of it. He says it means I might be able to do everyday activities. The NHS does prescribe some licensed cannabis-based products for certain conditions, including severe epilepsy, nausea from chemotherapy, and muscle spasms caused by MS. Now, a BBC investigation last year found that found fewer than 5 people, 5, have been prescribed medicinal cannabis by NHS England. 5. So there you go, 5 people. So hopefully they can get that changed. in order to go on further. I'm not seeing any more of this in this report, so it looks like maybe no more on the story. Okay, yeah. All right, so that's terrible. Where someone's paying that kind of money for access to their medicine and cannabis medicine, £2,000, and like I said, like 1.8 times that. So you're almost doubling it for somebody over there using our dollars. So it's nasty, just nasty. All righty, on my next story here. And with the U.S. election just around the corner, actually, in the next 24 hours, it's actually ongoing right now. But election day is tomorrow, Tuesday, November the 5th. Today is the 4th, so here we go. It says Americans say Harris would be better for cannabis industry. A new poll that shows even Trump voters are divided. This comes to us from the Marijuana Moment. And what it says is that Americans overwhelmingly believe that Vice President Kamala Harris would be more beneficial for the U.S. cannabis industry if elected president than former President Donald Trump, according to a new poll released on Thursday. Even Republican voters are largely split between the two candidates in terms of which one they believe would be better for cannabis businesses. Overall, 45% of respondents said the cannabis industry would be better if Harris were elected next week or tomorrow, while just 16% believe Trump would be more of a boon to the sector, according to the new YouGov poll of 1,129 U.S. adult citizens conducted last week. Meanwhile, 26% they weren't sure who would be better aid the industry, and 13% they felt the two candidates were about equal on the issue. By party identification, Democrats are broadly confident in Harris, with nearly two-thirds, which is 65%, saying she'd be better for the cannabis industry, and just 4% saying Trump would. Republicans were divided, however, with 31% saying Trump would be better, while 30% said Harris actually would be. Now, further on down here, these stories usually continue. Even among those who said they plan to vote for Trump this year, just 33% said he'd be better for the cannabis industry, and 30% said Harris would. Nearly a quarter, that's 24%, said they weren't sure. Now, among respondents identifying as politically independent, 37% said Harris would be better for the cannabis industry, while 14% said Trump would be a better candidate for the sector. More than a third, 37%, said they weren't sure between the two candidates, while 12% said they do better. Would they do about the same? Cannabis was about one of 20 different industries that the YouGov poll asked about. Overall, voters said Trump would be better for 13 of the 20 industries. But of all industries, cannabis was the one with the smallest proportion of respondents who said Trump would be the better president. Among every Democratic identified by the YouGov survey, all but Republicans and Trump voters said Harris would be better for cannabis industry. Notably, the survey did not distinguish between the largely separate cannabis and hemp markets in the country. A majority of the states have legalized some form of higher THC cannabis, whether for medical or adult use, while hemp was legalized nationwide through the 2018 Farm Bill. Okay, and now the release of the survey comes days after a separate poll by marijuana telehealth platform NugMD found that 53% of the cannabis consumers plan to vote for Harris in the presidential election, while 40% said they would vote for Trump. Pollsters said the survey was isolated voters in the 6 specific states: California, Missouri, New York, Ohio, Oklahoma, and Pennsylvania. Majorities of cannabis consumers in 3 of those states said they're backing Harris, and 2 are going for Trump, and 1 cannabis voters are evenly split. Another recent series of polls in Pennsylvania voters in competitive districts, including those currently controlled by Republican lawmakers, found bipartisan support for legalizing cannabis. And a separate YouGov poll released last week, meanwhile, found that a majority of voters, including supporters of Trump, backed the Biden administration push to reschedule cannabis Trump supporters were more likely to say that cannabis laws are important than compared to voters supporting Harris. While this is the first election in U.S. history where both major party candidates are in favor of legalizing cannabis, the Harris campaign has been leaning more strongly in her reform position in recent weeks. And I was thinking that the other day myself. For example, last week, Harris included legalizing cannabis as one of the top items on her to-do list if she wins the presidential election. That came just weeks after the vice president first pledged to federally legalize cannabis since becoming the party's nominee, promising that access to cannabis will become the law of the land. If elected, she will break down unjust legal barriers that hold Black men and other Americans back by legalizing cannabis nationally, working with Congress to ensure the safe cultivation, distribution, and possession of recreational marijuana is the law of the land, the Harris campaign said. And also last month, Harris made clear she still supports legalizing cannabis, which she previously pushed for as a senator but had not publicly discussed since becoming President Joe Biden's running mate in 2020. Separately, she also recently said that part of the reason for the delay in the administration's current cannabis rescheduling effort is federal bureaucracy that slows things down. And I just had that report, just the story before. Now, Harris running mate Minnesota Governor Tim Walz has also been talking cannabis policy on the campaign trail last week. For example, he stressed that cannabis legalization would be coupled with policies that give those who've been disproportionately targeted by criminalization the first shot to make money in the legal cannabis industry. And while Harris and Walz are aligned in their belief that prohibition should be replaced with a system of legalization and regulation, the governor has largely focused on the rights of the states to set their own cannabis laws rather than weigh on the federal legalization prospects. Now, it says here that Trump's running mate, Senator J.D. Vance, has voiced support for letting states decide on their own cannabis policies, though he's also said they should increase enforcement activities and complain about the smell of cannabis multiple times. Additionally, he's repeatedly sounded the alarm about fentanyl-laced cannabis, though he recently conceded that the issue isn't widespread. Now, the Harris-Walz campaign, meanwhile, has accused Trump of lying about his support for cannabis reform, arguing that his blatant pandering runs counter to his administration's record on cannabis. Now, following Trump's recent announcement of support for Florida's cannabis legalization ballot measure, the Democratic campaign has been working to communicate to voters that while in office, Trump took cannabis reform backwards. Now, last week, Colorado Governor Jared Polis said Harris's support of cannabis legalization is part of the nominee's freedom agenda. He made the remarks at an event hosted by musician and cannabis icon Willie Nelson on Thursday. There you go. So that's their rundown on who they believe is the best candidate when it comes to cannabis legalization in the U.S. All righty, on to my next story. And this one here is some more support in the U.S., but on a different tone of medicine. And that is coming to us here from the Psych Post. Headline says majority of Americans support supervised use of psilocybin for mental health and well-being. Now, a recent study published in AJOB Neuroscience found that a majority of Americans support psilocybin, which is found in magic mushrooms, for supervised medical treatment and well-being enhancement. They said this strong bipartisan approval highlights public openness to legalized and controlled use of the medicine by both medical and personal enhancement purposes, though with caution for future policy. Psilocybin is naturally occurring psychedelic compound that's found in certain types of mushrooms are referred to as, I said, magic. When ingested, psilocybin interacts with the serotonin receptors in the brain, creating profound changes in the perception, mood, and thought process. It has been long classified as a Schedule 1 substance in the U.S., meaning it has been regarded as having a high potential for abuse and no accepted medical use. Well, we know how that is going. However, recent research has sparked new interest in psilocybin due to its potential benefits, particularly in mental health. Studies have shown that when used under controlled therapeutic conditions, psilocybin may help reduce symptoms in individuals suffering from conditions such as treatment-resistant depression. Unlike many medications, psilocybin is thought to be non-addictive and may even improve well-being in healthy individuals. Now, the research conducted this study to address a lack of data on public attitudes towards psilocybin in light of recent legalization steps, such as in Oregon, where psilocybin is now allowed in licensed settings for both mental health treatment and well-being enhancement. The study aimed to gauge moral opinions on the supervised use of psilocybin, as well as attitudes towards its use beyond clinical needs to enhance general well-being, an area where previous studies were lacking. Now, to conduct the study, the researchers recruited a nationally representative sample of 805 Americans through an online platform. This sample was then refined to 795 participants after excluding those who did not meet attention criteria. The participants' ages ranged from 18 to 92, with a median age of 44. The sample was diverse, encompassing various genders, races, and political affiliations, making it a reflective of the United States demographics. Now, each participant received background information about psilocybin, including its origins, effects, and legal status. They were also informed about the new Oregon law permitting supervised psilocybin use and asked to imagine a similar law on a national level. Now, participants were then randomly assigned to read one of two scenarios where psilocybin was used under professional supervision in a licensing setting. In one scenario, the medicine was used to treat a mental health condition, while in the other, it was used by a healthy individual seeking well-being enhancement. After reading their assigned scenario, participants were asked to assess the moral acceptability of the individual's decision to use psilocybin in that controlled environment. Participants also completed several moral and demographic assessments, covering their values, empathy, and political views, among other things. The study revealed that 89% of the participants viewed supervised psilocybin use for mental health treatment as morally acceptable, and 85% approved of its use for well-being enhancement. Although slightly more participants supported medical use and enhancement, the general trend showed broad acceptance. Interestingly, this approval spanned across political lines, with both liberals and conservatives showing a strong endorsement for supervised psilocybin use in licensed settings. And whether it's in well-being enhancement or they say mental health treatment, I look at it as still of medical use. However, support varies slightly with age and political leanings. Younger adults with political liberals expressed higher approval than older adults and conservatives. Furthermore, participants who prioritized values like care and empathy were more inclined to view psilocybin use positively, linking these values with their desire for both patient and individual well-being. Despite the study's insightful results, there are some limitations. First, it focused solely on supervised use in licensed settings, omitting public opinions on unsupervised or recreational use of psilocybin, which may carry more risk. Additionally, the study did not examine whether participants' knowledge or beliefs about psilocybin might change over time with continued media and scientific attention to psychedelics. Now, future research might look into attitudes towards unsupervised use or expand on how people perceive risks associated with psychedelics in different contexts. Understanding these attitudes could guide lawmakers to develop policies with public sentiment while addressing the risk associated with unsupervised psychedelic use. So there we go. Okay, done. That's the first 4 stories. I'm halfway through. You know what that means? That means it's break time. and time for me to medicate. That's right. I'll be right back. You're watching Psychedelics and Cannabis Education News. We're live here at PACERadio.net.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at PACERadio.net.
Legacy 420 have an awesome array of cannabis-infused beverages, from pop to Nature's Nectar's teas, all in amazing flavors. What a selection! We even have a delicious mango-infused juice, and let me tell you, it's delicious.
Everything is infused in-house, so we buy our syrup from, the same place where everybody else buys their syrup for their pop, and the infusion is done in the lab. It's all canned here, labeled here, produced 100% on Tyndonega.
We have two lines of drinks. One is called our Nature's Nectar. That was our original line that we came out with. And then we also have a line under the Red E brand. We have them in 10 milligrams, 30 milligram, and 60 milligram cans.
What a great selection for a get-together with friends or after a long day. Remember, if you want to wet your whistle with on-site lab-tested products, come see your trusted partner. Legacy 420 out on your road.
Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. Open Monday to Friday from 10 till 7 p.m. or by chance. Check out our flags, our t-shirts, plus our hats. And look of that supply of rolling papers, plus much more. We've got bongs and your favorite herbal vaporizers. Look at all the incense we have, as well as for those who collect knives, check out these knives in our collection. And while you're here, stop in to see Shay at the piercing room, where you can get poked by Shay. Daily deals, check them out. Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford, Ontario. Limestone City Hydroponics is Kingston, Ontario's hydroponics shop. Take your growing to the next level and create the optimal environment with a tent kit, or maximize your yield with an ebb and flow flood table kit. Either way, Limestone City Hydroponics has more sizes and options to fit your needs. Are you looking for the power of the sun that adapts to your budget? Then look no further, as they have professional grow lighting. They have indoor grow systems that are easy and cost effective, with many options to fit your living space and lifestyle. Cultivate your growing potential. We have everything you need to succeed. And if you can't make it to the store, they offer local delivery to the greater Kingston area. Remember, when you're looking for experts to help you grow, then look no further than the locally owned Limestone City Hydroponics, 105 Sunderland Drive in Kingston, Ontario. Call them at 613-548-0420. Are you looking for non-stop, continuous cannabis and psychedelic programming? If you are, then turn your browsers to 420radio.ca or PACERadio.net, where you will find the 420 Pace re-rolled Saturday. Everything gets started at 8 a.m. Eastern Saturday morning.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at PACERadio.net.
And you're live with Psychedelics and Cannabis Education News here at PACERadio.net, as well as on our YouTube channel. And thanks for tuning in, the viewers who are watching us on YouTube. Alrighty, on to my next story of the day. This one comes to me from At-Eze.ca, and headline says, Cannabis plants damaged. Resident frustrated. Nothing can be done. Alrighty, here we go. 4 teenagers entered the property of Pat Keller, a Castleman resident, in his third summer and stole a good chunk of the top of his cannabis plants. Look at the top of those buds, eh? Now, on Wednesday, October 9th, Keller was sitting in his garage around 11 a.m. when he heard a weird shaking sound. He turned the corner to see 4 teenagers jump over his 6-foot fence and cut off the top of his cannabis plants before fleeing. Keller tried to pursue them, but they quickly disappeared. It's more than just personal use. The cannabis acts as medication for Keller. That's right. Stealing people's medication. Exactly. Now, he says people are supposed to have emotions, drugs that they have put you on. They give you like a baseline where you stay. There's no ups, no downs. It zombies you. At least with cannabis, I have emotions again. I would much rather have a little bit of fluctuation than be a zombie. And the fluctuations aren't as extreme as just not being on medication. So yes, saves my I've been a whole new person the last 10 years since I started doing this. In all, Keller estimated that he lost about 6 ounces of cannabis, which is equivalent to about a month's supply, uh, about a month's growth, he says. He posted the crime on Facebook, where comments indicated they've seen the 14s before. Keller says, honestly, my cannabis is the least of my worries. It's the fact that there are kids flying around in broad daylight that concerns me. He believes the thieves may have been seen by via rail security camera, but employees told him they couldn't confirm or deny whether the boys were being filmed, so I may or may not call the police and waste time. So he didn't call the police, feeling he didn't have enough evidence to charge the teens with theft, and that I can't even get a police officer to say, yeah, do that, because he doesn't care. Just so you know, you can call the police, and the perpetrators can be charged with theft of stealing your cannabis. While the Russell OPP didn't give specific numbers on the increasing in trespassing and thefts of this type following the legalization of cannabis on October the 17th, 2018, we certainly haven't seen a significant increase. What I can say is that the thefts of this type generally occur when the plants are easily visible from the outside of the property or the suspects know the location of the plants. Trying to secure the areas where the plants grow by adding cameras and motion-activated lighting systems can help reduce these incidents. Also, trying to grow the plants in areas that are out of sight, if possible, can help. Maybe the cameras might not save your plants unless you got a thing on your phone that goes off and lets you know. But what it might do is identify the thieves. Since the theft, Keller has installed surveillance cameras in his yard to keep a constant eye on his property. And now he says that, and now I have a camera on my property, which I've never had to do in my life. And yes, it gives me the creeps that I have to go to this extreme to protect my property. Keller is still looking for the missing tops of his cannabis plants. Due to the rarity of the brand, the smell is just as special. Keller has described it as minty eucalyptus. Residents who smell the smell or spot the missing cannabis tops of the plants can contact its owner, but Keller isn't hopeful. He says, I know those kids are going to go sit in these back alleys and smoke a joint with their friends and have fun. But now, well, I don't think those 4 will be back. Safe and responsible cannabis storage. Now, the government has published an article entitled Growing Cannabis Safely at Home. In the article, there is a section on security measures to prevent cannabis theft. The government suggests that people who grow their own cannabis plants take measures to ensure that people don't find out about it, such as installing an alarm system, installing a large fence with a lockable gate, limiting the smell of cannabis coming from where it's planted, and ensuring that the plants are invisible from outside the yard. So you can find that at the Canadian website, government website. It's there. Alrighty. Yeah. A lot of people don't realize that, yeah, you can get charged with theft when it comes to cannabis. And people have been charged with stealing cannabis. So, if your cannabis plants get stolen, in days before they would ignore that, but these days it is a theft, and it's a couple plants, depending on, I believe the charge is normally theft under $5,000 is usually what the fine is, or the charge is. So, alrighty, on to my next story. This comes to me from the International Cannabis Business Conference. The headline says that 62% of Canadians still approve of cannabis legalization. Okay, Canada became the second country on the planet and the first G7 nation to adopt a national adult use legalization measure back in 2018. The only country to do so before Canada was Uruguay, where lawmakers approved the national adult use legalization measure in 2013. And I have an update story on that before I get done today, so stay tuned. However, unlike Uruguay, where legal recreational cannabis sales are limited to residents only, Canada permits recreational cannabis sales across the country to anyone of legal age. The legal age for cannabis purchases in Canada at the federal level is 18, although provinces and territories can set a higher age limit. Now, recreational cannabis commerce system in Canada is the most robust on earth. In addition to Uruguay and Canada, cannabis is also legal for recreation purposes at national level in Malta, Luxembourg, Germany, and South Africa. Canada is the only nation on that list that permits nationwide sales to adults, non-residents. Really? Investigators affiliated Research Co. recently surveyed Canadians to determine the level of support for legalization 6 years after implementation. The survey results are based on an online survey conducted from October the 13th to the 15th among 1,001 adults here in Canada. Now, the company stated that in the online survey of a representative national survey or sample, 62% of Canadians agree with cannabis being legal in Canada, while 33% disagree and 4% are undecided. Just so you know, that 62% is down. It was 64. It's down by 2. Agreement with the legal cannabis in Canada is highest in Quebec at 66%, followed by Alberta at 64%, Ontario is at 64%, BC is at 60%, Atlantic Canada at 56%, Saskatchewan and Manitoba is at 53%. Now, the Research Co. also determined the following. 33% of Canadians report having tried cannabis before it was legal. 14% only did so after legalization. 51% of consumers report making all their purchases through licensed retailers. 74% support expunging charges for people convicted of possession of cannabis for personal use. Yes, expunge those without forcing people to go through all the rigmarole to get it done. Now, recreational cannabis is currently legal in 24 states in the U.S. and in Washington, D.C. and regional adult use cannabis commerce pilot trials are operating in the Netherlands and Switzerland, and courts in a handful of other nations have rendered decisions providing some level of protection to adult cannabis consumers. So there you go. It's down 62%. It's down a little bit in the support of legalization of cannabis. So, and it's spread all over the country. Down on the East Coast, it is one of the higher consumption places when it comes to cannabis, and we saw there that they are the lowest when it comes to supporting legalization of cannabis. All righty, on to my next story. This one comes to me from the Marijuana Moment. The headline says, top VA official announces the agency's first funded psychedelic study for veterans since 1960s. Wow, that's a long time. The top U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs official is touting the first agency-funded psychedelic study since the 1960s, exploring the efficacy of MDMA-assisted therapy for veterans with post-traumatic stress disorder and alcohol use disorder. Now, the VA Undersecretary for Health, Sheriff Elena, discussed the research initiative during a panel that also featured Senator Kirsten Sinema and Rep. Morgan Luttrell, who have separately advocated for psychedelic reform. Now, in a LinkedIn post last week, Elena promoted the panel posted by a political reporter at the HLTH conference, where VA announced our first study that will be funded out of VA's own research dollars, which will investigate the effectiveness of MDMA-assisted psychotherapy for veterans with PTSD and alcohol use disorder. Now, specifically, the study will use low-dose MDA in the placebo arm in an attempt to address FDA's concern about patients knowing what study arm they're part of, addressing functional unblinding, will get the scientific community one step closer to better assessing the efficacy and safety of this novel therapy, he said of the project, which will be led by the Providence VA Medical Center in Rhode Island. Goes on to say this is the first study that the VA is funding investing in psychedelics since the 1960s. That's too long. The VA official also noted that he recently spoke about the issue with the Rep. Jack Bergman, co-founder of the Congressional Psychedelics Advancing Clinical Treatments Caucus, as well as former Rep. Tim Ryan, at separate psychedelics conferences. The conversation centered around what the future holds for getting more access to this potentially game-changing therapy. Now, the VA must lead on this encouraging area investigation so that we can continue to build trust with veterans contending with these severe health conditions and that's according to Elena. Now, Elena and Cinema also recently attended an event where VA officials were able to share findings from their study on MDA-assisted psychotherapy. Now, Rachel Yanda, Director of Mental Health at VA's James Pearson Veterans Affairs Medical Center, said following the event, the agency has produced stunning and robust results from its first ever clinical trial in the MDA therapy. Now, the VA continues to take leadership in the psychedelic arena, and it's coming from the top. The VA will fund psychedelic research, and when the time is right, moves to ensure safe clinical implementation, according to Yanda, who also serves as director of Center for Psychedelic Psychotherapy and Trauma Research at Mount Sinai at this time. Now, this comes as the FDA faces criticism from advocates and researchers after denying an application to approve the novel therapy based on separate research. Just one day before FDA declined to approve a new drug application for MDMA-assisted therapy, Yanda said she's been asked how that decision might affect the department's own work. She said the answer is, double down on the research. Keep generating the data and the cases. The nature of challenge is, well, that. It is challenging, but I am optimistic. All right. Put it in another gear and keep going. Bipartisan lawmakers separately staged an event at the U.S. Capitol calling for MDMA approval by the FDA and also launched an art installation memorizing veteran affairs who died by suicide. Meanwhile, the U.S. House of Representatives recently approved amendments to a large-scale spending bill that would authorize VA doctors to issue medical cannabis recommendations to military veterans and support psychedelics research and access. And in August, the Senate Appropriations Committee also passed report language for appropriations legislation conveying concerns about restrictions on cannabis and psychedelics research imposed by current prohibition. Meanwhile, the DEA administration judge has denied the federal agency request to block a series of witnesses and evidentiary exhibits in a forthcoming hearing on its plans to ban a pair of psychedelics compounds for research purposes. Now, last month, advocates in support of expanding access to psychedelic-assisted therapy for American veterans, military veterans, released an informational guidebook that backers says responds to the demand for alternative treatment solutions and equips veterans with practical, clinically backed studies to safely explore these therapies. So there you go. Good. VA is getting involved. It's always good when Veterans Affairs can get involved in this to get this moving ahead, because if it's going to help the veterans, then it's needed. And from all reports that I'm seeing and that we're reporting on here, it is big help for the veterans as well as everybody else who's dealing with PTSD and other conditions. So let's get at her, FDA. Let's get this stuff approved. All right. On my last story of the day, as I mentioned earlier, there's another update, something going on in Uruguay, and here it is. according to the International Cannabis Business Conference. They say pharmacies in Uruguay to sell recreational cannabis with higher THC levels. Oh, but people might not realize maybe the THC levels were a little low. There's a frosty nug. Let's find out what's going on there. Now, Uruguay became the first country on earth to adopt a national adult use cannabis legalization measure back in 2013, with legal recreational cannabis sales launching in 2017, including sales through the national pharmacies. Legal sales at pharmacies began in Uruguay in the summer of 2017, and consumers could initially choose from 2 different strains. Wow. The 2 strains are named Alpha and Beta, each with THC levels equal to or less than 9%, and CBD levels equal to or less than 3%. Then in 2022, Uruguay permitted a third option, Gamma, which has a THC level of equal to or less than 15% and CBD levels of equal to or less than 1%. Regulators in Uruguay recently approved a 4th option that contains a higher level of THC than the other 3 options. The new variant has a THC content of equal to or less than 20%. All right. And CBD content of equal to or less than 1%. Now, the 20%, at least it's getting there, and patients with a lot of pain, and just people who maybe aren't registered patients but are recreational users and dealing with some pain issues. Now, currently, 71,843 Uruguayan citizens are legally registered to purchase cannabis in pharmacies. Oh, you got to register before you can go buy it. That's that citizen only thing. Now, 11,708 have received permission to grow at home. Good. And 13,687 are members of cannabis clubs. Right now, cannabis is legal for adult use at a national level in Uruguay, Canada, Malta, Luxembourg, Germany. Okay, that's same as what the end of the other article was going on. But yeah, you got to open that up. Wonder why these countries why they don't allow tourists, people who are visiting, access to their cannabis. I know that some countries frown on that if they know that their citizens are consuming cannabis while they're away in a different country. They can actually be charged for doing so, and that's that's not right. So, all righty. Well, hopefully they can do that in Uruguay someday. Sounds like they got 4 strains instead of 2 strains now. Just 4 strains isn't enough, but at least they got their THC levels up, and hopefully they can work on improving things even more. All right. Other than that, that's it for today from the Legacy420.com news desk. That's the P.A.C.E News Report for November the 4th. Thanks to our buds at the Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, Legacy420.com, Limestone City, Hydroponics.ca, and At-Eze.ca. In closing, we'd like to say thank you for tuning in, and please don't forget to educate, medicate, and do not incarcerate.
You're listening to the P.A.C.E Radio Network here at PACERadio.net.
The opinions of the individuals during this broadcast are their own, and may not be the opinions of their group or other organizations they may be involved with. All medical advice during our broadcast is not a medical opinion and should be checked with your medical physician.
When you have a pain that's reached its peak, Legacy for 20 is so unique. If organic cannabis is what you seek, here's your trusted partner 7 days a week. Suppository salves, vapes and drops, topicals, edibles, infused pop. Just when life seems like it ain't easy, at Legacy 420 enjoy a pop freezy. Lab tested products make them the GOAT. Legacy 420 out on your road. Legacy 420 in Tyndonega Mohawk territory. Indigenous organic cannabis at its finest.
Enjoy the buzz of legalization with Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. From lights to plant nutrients, books, consumption accessories, and more, we've got all your basics to grow or consume cannabis. Visit our info center or take a look at our piercing services and body jewelry, now available in-store through Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford.
Limestone City Hydroponics is Kingston, Ontario's hydroponics shop. Take your growing to the next level and create the optimal environment with a tent kit, or maximize your yield with an ebb and flow flood table kit. Either way, Limestone City Hydroponics has more sizes and options to fit your needs. Are you looking for the power of the sun that adapts to your budget? Then look no further, as they have professional grow lighting. They have indoor grow systems that are easy and cost effective, with many options to fit your living space and lifestyle. Cultivate your growing potential. We have everything you need to succeed. And if you can't make it to the store, they offer local delivery to the greater Kingston area. Remember, when you're looking for experts to help you grow, then look no further than the locally owned Limestone City Hydroponics, 105 Sunderland Drive in Kingston, Ontario. Call them at 613-548-0420.
We are people advocating cannabis education here at PACERadio.net.